The screen is dark. Suddenly, we hear heavy breathing and a faint squeaking sound. The voice trembles. I can't move. I can't speak. This thing, it's controlling me. It's watching me, waiting. I can feel it inside my head, pulling my every thought, my every action. It's a doll, but it's not just a doll. It's alive. Before we dive into this nightmare, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe. Trust me, you won't want to miss what's coming next. Stay with me, because this is just the beginning. I've always been the kind of person who rolls their eyes at ghost stories and supernatural claims. I mean, come on, who really believes in that stuff? I've lived my life on the side of reason, the side where everything has an explanation. If something goes bump in the night, there's always a logical reason for it. Drafts, pipes, creaky floors. Ghosts? No thank you. That's not the world I live in. When I moved into this old house, it was supposed to be a fresh start. Just a simple change of scenery. The house itself was charming, a bit weathered, but with character. The kind of place you'd see on those before and after shows, slightly worn down but full of potential. I wasn't expecting anything weird. It was just a house, and I was just a person trying to make it home. My life was calm, mundane, like anyone else's. I worked, I rested, I lived. One day, while rummaging around in the attic, I found it, $1. It was tucked away in a dusty corner, wrapped in an old sheet. At first, I thought it was just an odd, antique decoration, something left behind by previous owners. It was one of those porcelain dolls, the kind that looked a little too lifelike, with glassy eyes and a permanent frown. It creeped me out, sure, but nothing more than that. I wasn't going to let a doll spook me, so I placed it on the shelf in the corner of the room, thinking it'd be a quirky little addition to my new place. No harm, no foul. I wasn't concerned, not yet. It was just a doll, right? Nothing more. Just something old and out of place, but harmless. Or so I thought. At first, everything seemed fine. For the first few days, I didn't give that doll another thought. It sat there on the shelf, quietly gathering dust. I'd pass by it occasionally, give it a glance, but I didn't feel anything unusual. Maybe just the typical unease you get from something old, something that had clearly been around for far longer than I had. But it was nothing more than a fleeting sensation, like I was just letting my imagination run wild. I mean, I was still settling in, getting used to the new space, the quiet. But then, little things started to happen. At first, I brushed them off, telling myself it was just coincidence, the natural quirks of an old house. I'd walk into a room, and suddenly the doll would be facing a different direction. Sometimes it would be in a different spot entirely, as if someone had picked it up and moved it when I wasn't looking. And I was certain I hadn't done it myself. I even remember standing in the hallway one night, watching the doll from the corner of my eye as I passed by. And I swear, for a split second I saw it blink. It was probably just the way the light hit it, I told myself. Probably. But still, there was this nagging feeling, like a whisper in the back of my mind that I couldn't shake. I tried to ignore it. I told myself that it was nothing, just an old, creepy doll. And yet I couldn't help but feel watched. Not all the time, but sometimes when the house was quiet, too quiet, I would catch myself glancing over at it. And it was like it was always waiting for me to look, waiting for something. It was just a doll, right? Of course it was. But why then did I feel like I was being drawn in? I tried to shrug it off, tell myself I was being ridiculous. After all, I was a skeptic, right? Things didn't get worse right away. In fact, for a while it seemed like I had gotten a handle on it. I told myself it was just my overactive imagination, nothing more. But as time passed, the feeling of being watched grew stronger, more intrusive. It wasn't just the doll anymore. It was the entire house. The silence felt heavier, as though it was suffocating me. Every time I walked past that shelf, I couldn't help but glance at the doll. And every time, it was like I was being pulled in by some invisible force, unable to stop myself from looking. Then one night, it happened. I was lying in bed, unable to sleep. It was around 2 a.m., the house so quiet I could hear my own heartbeat. I tried to turn over, but something felt wrong. There was a pressure, a weight in the room that I couldn't explain. My eyes darted around the darkness, searching for anything out of place. And that's when I saw it, just the faintest glimmer of movement in the corner of my vision. At first I thought it was nothing, maybe just a shadow cast by the moonlight filtering through the window. But then it happened again, a small, almost imperceptible shift. The doll had moved. It wasn't a huge shift, nothing that would have caught anyone else's attention. But I saw it. I knew. It had turned, its head facing the bed, its eyes staring directly at me, unblinking. My heart pounded in my chest, and I tried to convince myself that it was just my mind playing tricks on me. I sat up in bed staring at it for what felt like an eternity, willing myself to look away, but I couldn't. I couldn't tear my eyes off that doll. It was like it was calling to me. I didn't sleep that night. I couldn't. Every time I closed my eyes, I could still see it. Those cold, lifeless eyes staring right through me. It wasn't just a doll anymore. It was something more, something far darker. And I was starting to realize that I wasn't imagining it. Something was happening. Something was changing. And I wasn't in control anymore. The following days were a blur of unease, as though the doll had planted itself firmly in my thoughts. I tried to tell myself it was nothing, a trick of the mind, a little too much to stress perhaps. But deep down, I knew something was wrong. Every time I passed that doll, it felt like it was waiting for me, watching me as if it could sense my every move. I started noticing other small things, things I couldn't easily explain away. I'd walk into a room and the air would feel thicker, almost suffocating, like something was pressing down on me, just out of sight. The doll's eyes would be staring at me no matter where I was, and I began to feel a kind of tugging sensation, like an invisible thread pulling at me, forcing my attention back to it. One night I woke up in the middle of the night, my body frozen in place. It wasn't sleep paralysis. I've had that before, but this was different. I could feel the weight of the air pressing against me, but it wasn't physical. It was as if the doll was inside my mind, slowly taking over, whispering things I couldn't understand. The words weren't clear at first, just a jumble of static, like an old radio tuning in and out. But then slowly, they became coherent, growing louder. Come closer. I'm waiting. I tried to move. I tried to scream, but nothing happened. My body wouldn't obey. It was like I was trapped inside myself, unable to do anything but listen. The voice was soft, almost seductive, but it sent a shiver down my spine, a feeling of dread that I couldn't shake. The more I tried to fight it, the more I felt like I was sinking into something dark, something I couldn't get out of. And the doll, it was a part of this. I could feel it deep in my chest, like its presence had become an extension of my own body. I couldn't explain it. I didn't want to believe it, but there was no denying it anymore. The doll wasn't just a creepy antique. It was controlling me. I was no longer in charge. It had taken hold, and there was no going back. It didn't take long for things to spiral. After that night, I couldn't shake the feeling that I was no longer alone in my own body. I would find myself doing things I didn't remember choosing to do, saying things I didn't want to say. At first, it was small, insignificant things. I'd pick up a glass of water, but then my hand would move without my permission, pushing it away. I'd reach for my phone to make a call, but the number I dialed was always wrong. It was like I was being forced to live in a reality I didn't want to be a part of. And the worst part was that I couldn't do a thing about it. My body would move, but it wasn't me moving it. I was trapped inside, watching, helpless. The doll seemed to be getting stronger, more persistent. I couldn't escape it. I started researching anything I could find about dolls, spirits, curses, anything that could explain what was happening to me. I read stories about haunted objects, about people who were controlled by forces they didn't understand. The more I dug, the more terrified I became. There were accounts of dolls being vessels for spirits, their owners being manipulated, even possessed. The stories seemed far-fetched, something out of a horror movie. But I was living it. I knew what was happening to me, even if I didn't want to believe it. I started reading about a specific kind of curse, a spirit bound to an object, A vessel like the doll I had found, waiting for someone to let it in, and when it took hold, there was no going back. It all pointed back to the doll. Everything I was experiencing, it was all tied to it. The doll wasn't just watching me anymore. It was inside me. It was in my head, controlling my every move. I could feel it whispering to me now, clearer than ever. Come closer. Do what I want. There's no escape. It was like it had planted itself deep in my mind, feeding on my fear, my desperation. I tried to fight it, tried to block it out, but the harder I resisted, the stronger the pull became. It was suffocating, like I was drowning in my own body, unable to scream, unable to break free. And the worst part? I was starting to wonder if there ever was a way out, or if this was my reality now, forever. The more I tried to resist, the more I realized how much power the doll had over me. It wasn't just about the physical control anymore. It was in my head, twisting my thoughts, making me doubt myself. There were moments when I thought I had finally broken free, when I could move or speak of my own will. But then the doll's voice would creep back into my mind, louder and clearer each time. I'd feel it tugging at the edges of my thoughts, pulling me back into its grasp. You belong to me now, it would whisper. You are mine. I tried to tell someone, anyone, but no one would believe me. My friends thought I was just stressed, that it was all in my head. They said I was overreacting, that it was just an old doll, nothing more. And the worst part was, I started to doubt myself too. Was I really losing my mind? Or was there something more sinister at play here? The longer this went on, the more I began to wonder if the doll had always been waiting for me. Had it been there, in the attic, for years, just waiting for the right moment to strike? Had it always known I would be the one to find it? I couldn't take it anymore. I had to get answers. I needed to understand what was happening, even if it meant delving into things I didn't want to believe. I began to search for information on the doll, its origins, its history, anything that could explain the control it had over me. That's when I discovered something terrifying. This wasn't just a cursed object. It was part of something darker, something more ancient than I could have ever imagined. The doll was bound to a malevolent spirit, one that had been trapped for generations, waiting for someone like me to set it free. And I was its vessel. The realization hit me like a cold wave. I wasn't just a victim. I had become a part of the doll's twisted plan. It wasn't just controlling my body. It was using me to complete some dark, forgotten ritual. And the worst part? I didn't know how to stop it. The more I tried to fight back, the more the doll's presence seemed to grow, like it was becoming stronger with every moment. I wasn't just losing control. I was losing myself. I was desperate now. I had to find a way to break free, to get this thing out of my life for good. I couldn't stand being trapped inside my own body anymore. The doll had its grip on me, tightening every day. I'd try to do the simplest things like make a cup of coffee, but my hands wouldn't listen. My body would move, but it wasn't me in control. It was like an invisible force was pulling my strings, making me perform these strange, terrifying actions. The worst part was the creeping feeling that I wasn't alone, even when I was by myself. I could feel the doll's presence, always lurking, watching, waiting for the next moment to strike. I tried everything I could think of. I even attempted to lock the doll away in the basement, convinced that if I separated myself from it, the hold it had over me would weaken. But when I went down there to check on it the next morning, the doll was back on its shelf, as if it had never left. It was mocking me, showing me that no matter what I did, I couldn't escape. The doll was always with me. That's when I started researching in earnest. I found out that the doll wasn't just a cursed object. It was part of a much older, much darker ritual. The spirit bound to it had been trapped for centuries, seeking a way to break free. And now I was its unwilling host. Every action I took, every word I spoke, was part of the ritual. I was being used, manipulated in ways I couldn't even begin to understand. I read about people who had tried to destroy these cursed objects, who had tried to break the bond, but no one had ever succeeded. The spirit in the doll was too powerful, too ancient. Once it had chosen its vessel, it didn't let go. I felt the panic rising in me, like a flood that couldn't be stopped. There had to be a way to destroy it. There had to be. I couldn't live like this anymore. Trapped, constantly fighting for control of my own body. I needed help, but I was too afraid to ask anyone. What could I even say? Hey, there's a doll that's controlling me and trying to kill me. Yeah, no one would believe me. I had to do this on my own. But I was running out of time. Every day I spent under its influence, I could feel it taking more from me. My will, my strength, my very sense of self, it was all slipping away. I knew there was only one way out, but I wasn't sure I was strong enough to face it. I had to confront the doll, confront the spirit inside it, and try to break its hold over me once and for all. But how? How do you fight something that's not just in your mind but in your soul? Something that has been waiting for this moment for so long? I didn't know, but I had no choice but to try. Because if I didn't, I'd lose myself completely, and I wasn't ready for that. Not yet. The night I decided to confront the doll was the hardest decision I've ever made. I knew that if I failed, it could mean the end of everything. My freedom, my sanity, maybe even my life. But I couldn't live like this any longer. The constant fear, the constant feeling of being controlled by something I couldn't understand, it was slowly destroying me. Every part of me screamed to run, to get out, but I knew I couldn't. Not unless I faced it. I had to take back control. That night, I locked the door to my bedroom. I gathered all the strength I had left and stood in front of the shelf where the doll sat. The air in the room felt thick, like it was suffocating me, like the walls were closing in. I could feel it, that familiar weight pressing down on me. It was as if the doll was already aware of what I was planning, already knowing that I was coming for it. My body was trembling, but I forced myself to take a deep breath. The whispers in my head were growing louder, more frantic, as if the spirit inside the doll knew this was the end of its game. You can't stop it. You can't stop me, it hissed, its voice cold and cruel. But I refused to let it break me. I had to find a way to break the bond, to sever the connection between myself and the doll. I reached out to touch it, my fingers brushing against the cold porcelain. For a moment, nothing happened. It felt just like any other object, just like it had when I first found it. But then, as soon as my skin made contact with the doll, the connection intensified. The whispers in my mind became a cacophony of voices, drowning out all rational thought. I could feel the doll pulling at me, its energy wrapping around me like a tight coil, squeezing the life out of me. I tried to pull away, but I couldn't move. The doll's eyes seemed to glow now, the glassy pupils locked onto mine with an intensity that made my heart race. You belong to me, it whispered again, its voice smooth, serpentine. It wasn't just in my head anymore. It was everywhere, surrounding me, invading every part of my consciousness. The pressure built until I could barely breathe, until the only thing that mattered was the doll and its cold, unyielding grip on me. But I couldn't give up. I thought about all the things I had learned about the curse, about the spirit trapped inside the doll. I had to break the bond, had to force the spirit to leave me. In that moment, I remembered something from my research, something I hadn't paid much attention to at first. The only way to destroy the curse was to sever the connection between the doll and the spirit, to destroy the object that had been its vessel. But it wasn't enough to just burn it, to throw it away. No, it had to be done with purpose, with intent. I had to want it gone with every part of my soul. And as I stood there, feeling the spirit tightening its hold on me, I realized something terrifying. I had to destroy the doll. But in doing so, I would have to destroy myself too. The thought sent a shock through me, but I knew it was the only way. I had to force the spirit out at any cost. With all the strength I could muster, I spoke, my voice shaking but determined. I am not yours. I will not be controlled by you. The doll's grip on me tightened in response, but I forced the words out again, louder this time, with every ounce of defiance I could summon. You will never have me. The air in the room shifted, the whispers growing frantic, like the spirit was losing its grip, struggling to maintain control. The pressure on my chest was unbearable, but I held firm. I wasn't going to let it win. The doll started to shake in my hands as if it were alive, as if it were fighting back. But I didn't stop. I had come too far. With a final, desperate effort, I slammed the doll to the ground. The room fell silent. The oppressive weight in the air lifted, and for the first time in weeks, I could breathe. I collapsed to my knees, my body shaking, tears streaming down my face. The whispers had stopped. The weight was gone. The doll was no longer controlling me. I had won, but I knew it wasn't over. The doll might have been silenced for now, but the spirit was still out there, lurking, waiting for its next chance. I had fought one battle, but this was far from the end, and I couldn't shake the feeling that the doll would be back. It always comes back.